Welcome to cupán. What value do you place on a name? Isn't that the question? What value do you place on a name? When we think about certain brands of clothing, when we think of fashion lines, when we think of certain fashion houses, it's all about the name. We identify the product by the name. In fact, that name carries weight and carries worth. How do we know that? Very simple. If you were to go and buy such a clothing line or such a product, whatever it is, well, the name would cost you greatly just for the use of it. In fact, the franchise business is all based around the use of the name. If you wanted to go and set up a company under a particular brand, well, then you have to go and pay for that brand. But you also must go and do it and carry out the work under their guidelines and rules. You must do it their way because that's what the franchise is. It's all based on a name. Yet Shakespeare in the play Romeo and Juliet goes and says, "What is a name? That which we call a rose. By any other name could smell just as sweet." And so what he was actually referring to or applying when he went and asked the question, what is a name, is the idea that the name themselves are just a convention by which we go and distinguish things or people, but that the name itself doesn't have any meaning or worth. Well, I don't know if that's really true. I guess I can see what he's arguing about. If you went and called a rose a daisy and you always referred to it and knew it as a daisy, the thing is that then you would still, the smell would be the same, its fragrance would be the same, it would look the same, but I don't know if that's just as simple as he goes and makes out. In fact, I would go and say a rose is a rose is a rose, because that is how we identify a rose. And once we mention the word rose, we know what we're talking about. But name does have value, it does have worth. A person by the name of Dermot, who was a friend of mine, went and sent me a YouTube clip all about spiritual warfare. And the fact that we, as God's people, as Christians, as believers, are actually caught up in a spiritual battle. And that battle, of course, is not against flesh and blood, but there's various different people sharing about the reality of this battle. And I went and I decided just to listen to it rather than watch the video. But as I was listening to it, it occurred to me that it all boils down to one issue. That all of the issues in our world boil down to this one issue. And it's all about the name. It doesn't matter what society, it doesn't matter what culture, it doesn't matter what belief system, it doesn't matter about what religion. None of those things matter. What matters is actually the name. And of course, that name is Jesus. I was also watching a documentary or discussion, actually, debate on TV, which I thought one man was very bravely sitting there with a t-shirt on it with "Jesus is Lord." What a statement to be making on a national platform. When the word Jesus is mentioned, what does that trigger inside of you? Another word, isn't it? Oh, I was triggered. Everything is about being triggered nowadays. What does it trigger inside of you, the word of Jesus? You know, nothing has changed. What really is the issue is whether you identify with the name of Jesus or not. And all the way back, and this is why I said nothing has changed, all the way back in Acts in chapter 4, when Peter and John were out and about and they went and healed a man. This is what took place. Rulers and elders of the people, if we're being called to account today for an act of kindness shown to a man who was lame and are being asked how he was healed, then know this, you and all the people of Israel, it is by the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, whom you crucified, but whom God raised from the dead, that this man stands before you healed. Jesus is the stone you builders rejected, which has become the cornerstone. Salvation is found in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given to mankind by which we must be saved. When the leaders saw the courage of Peter and John and realized that they were unschooled, ordinary men, they were astonished, and they took note that these men had been with Jesus. That's an interesting point. Do people take note that you've been with Jesus? But since they could see the man who had been healed standing there with them, there was nothing they could say. So they ordered them to withdraw from the Sanhedrin and then conferred together. "What are we going to do with these men?" they asked. "Everyone living in Jerusalem knows that they have performed a notable sign, and we cannot deny it. But to stop this thing from spreading any further among the people, we must warn them to speak no longer to anyone in this name." Then they called them in again and commanded them not to speak or teach at all in the name of Jesus. But Peter and John replied, "Which is right in God's eyes, to listen to you or to him? You be the judges. As for us, we cannot help speaking about what we have seen and heard." Note that the Jewish leaders tried to silence Peter and John from using the name of Jesus. And I would argue with you that the whole world over, that is the issue. And the thing is that the majority of people have actually successfully silenced believers, Christians, followers of God, from using the name of Jesus. There are companies that are bringing it in that you cannot use the name of Jesus. How often is it that it's okay to use the name of Jesus as a swear word, but don't preach or speak about Jesus here? How often is it okay to make a laugh of Christianity, but more importantly, a laugh of a person who believes in Jesus, in the name of Jesus? But it's not okay for that person to share the living reality of their faith in Jesus. You see, it all comes down to the name of Jesus. Now, I think that that's very interesting, because it does. It just goes and clears everything out. It doesn't matter what the religion is. It doesn't matter what the philosophy is. It doesn't matter what the faith is. The issue all boils down to one thing. What do we do with Jesus? Now, if you are someone and you profess to believe in the name of Jesus, are you someone who exalts that name? Are you someone who just lets everybody else thrash it in the mud? There's a challenge for you and me today. Thank you for joining me for this on Cupán. Remember, it's all about a name.